Hello, future occupational therapists. My name is Ali, and I'm going to help explain how to complete the annotated bibliography assignment that is provided for the Capstone 1 course of your second year. So, the annotated bibliography is basically going to help in the overall grand scheme of things for your capstone in understanding how to research for your articles and what to look for. We want to first define what the annotated bibliography is. To begin, it's as stated here, an annotated bibliography is a type of document combining a bibliography, I swear I can't say that correct, but or list of sources used for researching a topic to an annotation denoting 4 separate aspects: a summary and an evaluation, reflection, and level of evidence of sources used. So we want to break this down for the annotation portion of it. So there's 4 aspects, right? So we have the level of evidence, we have the summary, evaluation, and the reflection. So we're going to start looking at the summarization. When you're looking at the perspective of analyzing an article that you're interested in, you should look for the author's main argument or arguments, or their main point of the article. What's the point of the article? Why did they make it? You know? This is usually identified by not only looking at the introduction section, but also you want to look at the other sections. So the methodology, the results, the discussion. You know, don't go skipping around. You want to look at each section to get an overall view of what that individual was trying to achieve. It also helps to look at the introduction in terms of what previous research was there. So once you've gotten a handle of what it's about, you want to try to relate into real world practice. So that's where the assessment comes in. So when you're analyzing the shortcomings of the study, this is a really important skill to have. You want to look at the shortcomings of the study and not just look at the limitations of the author that they list at the end within the discussion section. So this is an incredible skill that you can use to demonstrate how credible the study is when translating theory into practice as an OT. So you want to evaluate your study of interest not only by looking at their limitations, but also the other aspects throughout. So an example of this would be going through, let's say, the results section. You will sometimes an author will state a certain factor was statistically significant. It's a very lovely word to put in there. It makes it look beautiful, you know, when you try to present the study and they say this is a statistically significant proven article of XYZ factor. Then you look back at the table, and usually the table will have something that's above a p-value of 0.05. So as you know, with p-values, statistically significant is typically below 0.05, and some authors will kind of wiggle their significant term into the general text. So you want to kind of watch out for that. You want to make sure the data within the tables is the same or consistent with the writing within the article itself. That's usually one of the bigger factors. You want to look for any kind of biases. So if a study is supposed to be a double-blinded study, randomized control trial, then you want to make sure there wasn't any potential for bias. And if there was, did the author mention it? Well, if not, then that's something to mention. You want to look at financial resources. So all those kind of factors come into play here. Another aspect you can think of is the study may have individuals who it's a lower population, so demographic. So you might have a sample size of like 50 for a randomized control trial, because that's usually a higher level of evidence, right? Well, that's not a great sample size. You can't really generalize that into the general public. Even if the results come out good, how relative can that be to the general public? You want to think of the population itself. Is it just one form of individuals? So how well can that incorporate into other diagnoses? You know, there's all sorts of things to look for, and there's always limitations within each study. That is primarily the assessment section, and I've made additional content to this that looks at the 2 primary study design types and what to look for when doing an analysis of studies. For quantitative and qualitative studies, that will show up right about now up there in the upper right corner. So third, we want to look at the level of evidence. So this is kind of like in conjunction a little bit with between summarization and assessment. Usually when you summarize the study, you're looking through the whole study, so they will indicate the level of evidence somewhere within that study. It's never in the same place, but it will be within the beginning of the methodology section, or it will be maybe in the discussion section. It could be in the results section. So they can always mix it up, but usually it's discussion or methods from what I've seen. So you would want to look through there, and then you would want to have a familiarity of the different levels of evidence. So the higher the level of evidence, the more credible your study is. So if it's a randomized controlled, double-sided randomized controlled trial, it's a level 2. If it's a systematic review that has primarily randomized controlled trials that are well conducted, that's a level 1. That's like the highest level. And after that, you go down the list. Qualitative is on the lower end of it. It's not really rated because it's more thematic. It's more on the subjective experience. So usually you'll get the level of evidence not clear cut until you read through the article. So that's why it's important to look through each section in summary instead of just the introduction or just the little abstract at the top. That's not enough. And then finally we have the reflection. So it's just as it sounds. You want to reflect on how does this study relate to your PICO question. So when you formulate your PICO question and what you're looking for, how does this study solve that question? That's primarily what this section is for. Is there a unique aspect of the study that you're looking for, or is it, does it solve a certain part of your question? So now that you know what to look for, how should it look? Is there an example of this? Yes, there's an example, and that's why I'm here. So this is the template that's given to you as how to perform it. It looks a little confusing because it's got the asterisks here and everything's kind of like off. This is also in a WordPad, so forgive me. This is not Microsoft Word, so it's going to be a little off. So I'm going to show you how the full document should look. Obviously, WordPad doesn't have headings, so keep that in mind. So this will be my example coming up here. So here's my name. This is the title page. So you should have a title page. Ideally, you want at the top to have the title, which isn't showing up here, but it should be above your name. So it'd be right up here. And then you would have in the heading up here would be your title for the annotated bibliography. So then you want to scroll down. This should be the first page technically. So I basically am showing the first question here. So typically there will be 4 questions, and I'm going to run through each of them as how I answered them as an example for you. You can feel free to pause the video at any point if you feel like I'm going through quick. So basically this is obviously in APA format. You want your right under the question. So this one's asking about an outcome measure for the area of practice you're looking into. I listed my study right under it in APA format, hanging indent, etc. So Times New Roman, 12 font, 12 size font, 12 times. So the 4 questions, I'll just state them now. So this is providing an outcome measure. So that's what we just saw. The second one is, why does OT work within that specialty area? So you want to look for a theory supporting the OT intervention. If wanting to work in that area, what steps would you need to complete? So you would look at your memorandum of understanding. What are you going to do for your capstone or DSI to help facilitate that? So that's like where you're executing your plan basically. And then finally, find an additional article that kind of supports this topic, working with this population or area of practice. These questions will be pretty much, this will be the 4 questions you'll need to answer. The beginning section right under basically indicates the summarization of the article. Right out of the gate, it indicates the type of study we're working with, and which will be useful for knowing the level of evidence and its credibility. So that like just knocked out two words. Can't say things. Words. 2 birds with 1 stone. So you basically knocked out summarization in conjunction with level of evidence, so you don't have to worry about that once you indicate the type of study it is. This is directly followed by stating the main purpose of the study, along with a summarization of the article, including theming, outcome measures utilized, and overall aim of the study. This would be right here. Basically all this. the end part of that paragraph. So then the second paragraph that I have down here is looking at the limitations of the study. So basically I just went ahead and mentioned, you know, this factor was messed up with the study. There was level 1 to 3 articles, so it's not entirely a level 1 type of study. It's a varied degree of level of evidence. The limitations would be small sample sizes, limited follow-up sessions, and a lack of discussion over IADL functioning among older adults. So that's just a sum up of the study there. And then finally we have the review section, which is basically kind of looking at the reflection. What did I think about the article? Why did I choose it? What's good about it? So this is in relation to the outcome measures, right? So I looked at this because of the outcome measure that was within the study, and I found it to be important to my question, my PICO question. So typically the reflective question will also be where you answer the initial question. Not always, because sometimes you just answer throughout, but for this one in particular, I answered within the reflective question of, you know, why I chose this. So in regards to the rest of the document, it's essentially the same format. It's the same format through all 4 questions. It's just 4 different aspects you're answering, and you find an article that's aimed to answer that question. So once you've gone through all 4 questions here, I'm just going to scroll down. We have the reference page at the end, right? So obviously you want to list the 4 articles in alphabetical order, APA format, and double spaced, all that, you know, jazz. And that's pretty much it. It's not really too crazy. It's just you want to be able to dissect an article, understand what it's about, understand its limitations. It's very important to know the limitations, and then just reflect on it. Why did you use it? Is it good or not? So that's going to be really important because you're going to be doing a lot more of this within the coming year. So it's very important that you get this down. So hopefully this has been helpful. And as always, if you have any additional inquiries, ask your professor. But that's about it, guys. Take care, and thank you for watching.